Our understanding of human history, as conventionally taught and widely accepted, paints a clear, almost reassuringly linear picture. It is a narrative of slow, steady progress, a meticulous climb from rudimentary beginnings to the sophisticated, complex societies we inhabit today. For generations, this story has served as the foundational bedrock of our historical consciousness, a chronicle pieced together with immense dedication by archaeologists, historians and scholars across the globe, each new discovery adding another brick to its imposing structure. At its core, this established history places the birth of civilization, as we recognize it with its hallmarks of permanence and complexity, only a few thousand years in our past. We are told that the definitive story of organized human society truly begins in the fertile crescent of Mesopotamia, that crescent of land between the great rivers of the Tigris and Euphrates roughly 6,000 years ago. Here, in this cradle of civilization, the first grand experiments in human settlement are believed to have taken root, altering the course of our species forever. It was in these nutrient-rich lands, we learn, that the ancient hunter-gatherer bands, long nomadic and transient, finally put down roots. Drawn by the irresistible promise of abundant, predictable harvests, this momentous shift from a transient foraging lifestyle to settled agriculture, often referred to as the Neolithic Revolution, is portrayed as the single most pivotal moment in human prehistory, the fundamental catalyst that unlocked virtually all subsequent human achievement and social complexity. With a reliable agricultural surplus came the leisure and necessity for settled communities, which in turn fostered the very first cities. Imagine, if you will, the world transforming through this lens. Small, scattered villages slowly but inexorably blossoming into sprawling urban centers like the legendary Uruk and Eridu, their mud brick structures and monumental temples gradually reaching skyward, dwarfing anything that came before. This was not merely the expansion of communal living, it was its radical redefinition, giving rise to organized labor, specialized crafts, elaborate social hierarchies, and rudimentary forms of governance. The burgeoning complexities of managing agricultural surpluses, vast trade networks, and an ever-growing population spurred a new, urgent need, the need for systematic record-keeping. This necessity, born of intricacy, led directly to one of humanity's most profound inventions: writing, cuneiform, painstakingly etched into countless clay tablets, became the tangible beginning of documented history, an astonishing window into the thoughts, transactions, laws, and narratives of these pioneering people. This invention allowed knowledge to transcend individual memory and oral tradition, enabling it to accumulate, to be refined, and to build across generations in an entirely unprecedented way. From these Mesopotamian origins, the narrative suggests the potent seeds of civilization were meticulously sown and then spread across the ancient world. Egypt, with its majestic pyramids, enigmatic pharaohs, and profound spiritual traditions, majestically emerged along the life-giving Nile. The sophisticated urban planning of the Indus Valley civilization, evident in its meticulously laid-out cities like Mohenjo-Daro and Harappa, flourished almost simultaneously, testament to a parallel, independent leap in human organization. Later, the classical civilizations of Greece and Rome would rise, building upon these earlier foundations, refining philosophy, engineering, and governance to unprecedented heights of complexity and influence. This is the timeline we hold dear, a continuous, unbroken chain of innovation and development, each link forged by the one before, leading inexorably, predictably, to the present moment. It is a story that feels reassuringly complete, remarkably cohesive, and wonderfully logical in its progression, offering a clear path from a distant, primitive past to our modern, enlightened present. Yet, when we allow ourselves to step back, to gain a wider perspective beyond the confines of this carefully constructed narrative, a profound and deeply unsettling question begins to emerge. The very foundations upon which this accepted timeline of civilization rests appear, in a broader cosmic and geological context, to be surprisingly narrow, almost impossibly so. Our planet, Earth, the ancient stage upon which all life's dramas unfold, is not a recent creation. Its age stretches back an unfathomable 4.5 billion years, a span of time so immense it defies easy comprehension, shrinking human endeavors to mere instants. Life itself has teemed across its vibrant surface for billions of years, evolving, adapting, and transforming in countless, often spectacular forms. And what of humanity? The species that now dominates this ancient sphere? Anatomically modern humans, Homo sapiens, our direct ancestors, those possessing the same biological and cognitive capacities that define us today, have walked this earth for a far, far longer period than the conventional timeline of civilization suggests. The scientific consensus, supported by a wealth of fossil, genetic and archaeological evidence, places our origins in Africa somewhere between 200,000 and 300,000 years ago. This means that our species, fundamentally equipped with the same brain capacity, the same innate intelligence, boundless curiosity, and remarkable adaptability that we possess today, existed for hundreds of thousands of years, before the first mud brick cities rose in Mesopotamia, before the first cuneiform tablet was inscribed, before the first plough broke ground for agriculture. Consider that vast, silent expanse of time. Imagine a single line stretching from the appearance of the first Homo sapiens to the present day. Upon that immense continuum, the entire cherished history of recognized civilization, the rise of agriculture, the invention of writing, the construction of cities, the formation of complex societies, occupies only a tiny, almost imperceptible segment at the very tail end of that line. It is a mere sliver representing less than 3% of our species' total journey on Earth. This staggering disproportion, this yawning chasm between our deep past and our recorded past, forces us to confront a central, deeply disquieting question. What was truly happening during all those unrecorded millennia? What were our ancestors genuinely doing for the hundreds of thousands of years that preceded the dawn of recorded history? The conventional answer, while logical within its framework, often suggests a period of relative stasis, a simple, largely unchanging hunter-gatherer existence focused purely on immediate survival with little significant cultural, technological, or organizational advancement. We are implicitly asked to believe that for an astounding 97% of our species' existence, humanity remained largely static, engaging in the same basic behaviors, living in the same rudimentary ways until, with an almost inexplicable abruptness, a switch was flipped. Suddenly, seemingly from nothing, agriculture appeared, grand cities rose from the earth, and the intricate art of writing was invented, almost ex nihilo. This perceived sudden burst of creativity, innovation, and complex organization, following such an immense and prolonged period of apparent inactivity, feels intuitively disproportionate, almost too neat, too conveniently fitting into a linear model. It poses a challenge to our understanding of human nature itself. Could it truly be that our current understanding of history, elegant and well-reasoned as it is fundamentally incomplete? What if the narrative we have so carefully constructed, the story we tell ourselves about our origins and journey, is merely a surface layer, a recent chapter in a much longer, infinitely more intricate story that has, for various reasons, largely been forgotten or overlooked? This is the profound implication we must now bravely consider. The quiet, persistent possibility that there exists evidence of civilization older than time itself. Older, that is, than the temporal boundaries our established timelines currently permit. This exploration is not a call for wild, unfounded speculation, nor is it a dismissal of the diligent, groundbreaking work performed by generations of dedicated scholars. Rather, it is an urgent invitation to re-examine the very edges of our collective knowledge, to look again with fresh eyes and an open mind at the anomalies, the scattered clues, the perplexing data points that stubbornly refuse to fit into the neat, predefined boxes of accepted history. For beneath the conventional veil, hidden in plain sight amidst the ruins and landscapes of our world, may lie the faint, puzzling whispers of earlier epochs, forgotten chapters of human experience. These are not necessarily complete intact cities, waiting perfectly preserved to be unearthed, nor perfectly catalogued libraries of ancient wisdom. Time and the relentless forces of nature are, after all, formidable erasers capable of dissolving almost anything. Instead, we should expect to find only fragments, unusual artifacts whose origins are debated, unexplained structures whose engineering defies conventional explanation, myths that resonate across disparate cultures with uncanny similarity, and geological scars that hint at immense transformative events. These are the elusive, often ambiguous, hints that suggest our past is far richer, far deeper, and considerably more complex than we currently allow ourselves to imagine. The concept of evidence older than time itself directly challenges the perceived linearity of human progress and evolution. It suggests that the journey of humanity might not be a single, unbroken line ascending ever upwards, a steady march towards an inevitable present, but perhaps a more dynamic, even cyclical, pattern of rise, flourishing, and subsequent decline. If genuinely advanced cultures existed in the distant past, reaching heights of knowledge, organization, and technological sophistication that we currently attribute only to ourselves or to relatively recent societies, then the entire framework of our historical understanding shifts dramatically. It forces us to confront the inherent fragility of civilization itself, a sobering reality that even the grandest, most enduring achievements can be swept away by forces both natural and perhaps self-inflicted, leaving behind only the most resilient, often cryptic, traces. The profound implications of such a deeper human past extend far beyond mere academic curiosity. They touch upon our very identity as a species. If we are not, in fact, the first advanced civilization, if earlier iterations of human ingenuity and cultural complexity rose and fell before our carefully recorded history, it profoundly humbles our collective sense of unique accomplishment. It suggests that knowledge, technology, and complex social structures are not exclusive to our current epoch, but rather recurring expressions of an innate human capacity that may have manifested repeatedly over immense spans of time. This perspective invites us to critically reconsider what progress truly means, and how much of our supposed innovation might, in fact, be a hard-won rediscovery of principles and techniques that were once widely understood, then lost to time, and only now being pieced back together. Consider the fundamental human impulse to build, to organize, to explore, to understand the vast cosmos around us. Is it truly plausible that this powerful, intrinsic drive lay largely dormant, unexpressed, for 97% of Homo sapiens' its existence, only to awaken fully formed and suddenly just a few millennia ago? Or is it more likely that these impulses have found expression repeatedly across different ages and landscapes, leaving their subtle or sometimes striking marks in ways we have not yet fully recognized, understood, or even dared to look for? The idea of a deeper past suggests that the pervasive silence in the archaeological record, those vast, blank stretches where little to no evidence of complex culture exists, may not be an authentic absence of activity, but rather a profound, heartbreaking loss, an almost total erasure by the relentless, erosive forces of time, the churning dynamics of geology, and the catastrophic impacts of natural cataclysms. This is where the true intellectual and existential weight of the question lies. If sophisticated civilizations truly existed before the accepted timeline, then the history we cherish, the narrative we pass down, is not a complete, authoritative volume, but a partial, perhaps heavily edited text. It becomes a story with immense missing chapters, entire narratives obliterated by millennia of natural processes, by the slow but inexorable shifting of continents, the dramatic rising and falling of seas, the relentless decay of organic matter, and the crushing weight of ice. What if these lost chapters contain stories of unparalleled ingenuity and tenacious adaptation, of triumphs and failures that mirror or even surpass our own? What if they hold fundamental keys to understanding recurring patterns of existence, patterns that we are only now, haltingly, beginning to perceive within the fleeting confines of our current historical awareness? The profound implications extend far beyond mere academic adjustments. A genuinely deeper past would fundamentally alter our understanding of human potential and, crucially, human vulnerability. It would suggest that the grand achievements of our recorded history, the pyramids, the philosophical treatises, the technological revolutions, might not be the singular, unique peak of a linear ascent, but rather one of many such peaks that have risen and fallen throughout the grand, often turbulent, sweep of our species' time on Earth. It would challenge our comfortable anthropocentric view of history, forcing us to acknowledge that our current pinnacle is, in the grand scheme of things, a temporary state, a brief, luminous moment in a much larger, recurring, and perhaps even cyclical narrative. This shift in perspective can be deeply unsettling, for it asks us to abandon the comforting simplicity of a neatly ordered, predictable past. But it also offers an exhilarating and truly profound promise, the chance to uncover a more expansive, awe-inspiring story of humanity. A story where our ancestors were not merely passive observers of millennia of unchanging existence, but active, inventive participants in an unfolding drama far grander and more epic than we have yet dared to imagine. It is a story where the very definition of ancient might need to be profoundly rethought, where the echoes of vanished worlds might still resonate, if only we learn how to truly listen, how to interpret the subtle, persistent signals they have left behind. The conventional veil of history, carefully woven with familiar threads of predictable progress, might soon be lifted, revealing the tantalizing glimpse of a human journey stretching back through an older, deeper, and infinitely more mysterious time. And as we begin to see through this veil, the true scale of humanity's past, and perhaps its future, begins to take on a breathtaking new dimension. The evidence, patiently waiting for recognition, suggests that the clock of civilization may have started ticking far, far earlier than we ever believed, its face etched with epochs we have yet to name. If the story we have been told feels strangely compressed, it is because we often look at the present as the culmination of a linear journey. But what if the past itself holds secrets etched in stone and submerged beneath the waves? What if the monuments we marvel at are not isolated wonders, but echoes of a knowledge far older than we dare to imagine? Across the globe, massive stone structures defy the simple narratives of our past. They stand as silent sentinels, challenging the very foundations of accepted human history. These are not mere piles of rocks, but sophisticated constructions, often built with a precision and scale that perplexes modern engineering. Perhaps the most startling of these is Göbekli Tepe in southeastern Turkey. Discovered relatively recently, this vast ceremonial complex consists of massive carved pillars, some weighing many tons, arranged in intricate circular enclosures. These stones are adorned with elaborate carvings of animals and abstract symbols, hinting at a rich symbolic world. What makes Göbekli Tepe truly revolutionary is its age. It dates back at least 12,000 years, pushing the timeline of monumental architecture, organized religion, and complex societal structures back by millennia. According to the conventional view, people at that time were still simple hunter-gatherers, nomadic and focused solely on immediate survival. Yet here we find them engaged in monumental construction, requiring immense planning, skilled craftsmanship, and a level of social cohesion that contradicts everything we thought we knew about that era. The sheer effort involved suggests a society capable of sustained collective labor, with specialized roles and a shared vision, a far cry from scattered bands foraging for food. What drove these ancient people to move such colossal stones and carve such intricate art? And why, after thousands of years of continuous use, was the entire site deliberately buried, preserved beneath layers of soil, as if to hide it from future eyes? Göbekli Tepe is not merely an anomaly, it is a profound question mark etched into the earth, suggesting a level of human capability and organization in the deep past that simply should not exist within our established historical framework. It speaks of a forgotten chapter, a time when humanity was already shaping its world in ways that challenge our most fundamental assumptions. Further south, high in the Bolivian Andes, lie the enigmatic ruins of Pumapunku, part of the larger Tiwanaku complex. Here, monumental blocks of stone, some weighing over 100 tons, are cut and fitted with extraordinary precision. Many of these stones exhibit intricate, almost puzzle piece-like shapes, with angles so sharp and surfaces so smooth that they seem to defy the capabilities of the tools available to the people believed to have built them. The stone itself, a hard red sandstone and diorite, is notoriously difficult to work. Mainstream archaeology attributes Pumapunku to people who lacked metal tools and the wheel, yet the craftsmanship visible in the interlocking H-blocks and perfect right angles seems to demand a level of technology far beyond simple hammers and chisels. How were these colossal stones quarried, transported over significant distances, and then shaped with such geometric perfection? The joints are so tight that a razor blade cannot be inserted between them, speaking to an engineering mastery that baffles modern experts. Pumapunku's design also reveals advanced astronomical alignments, further suggesting a society with sophisticated knowledge not only of construction, but also of the cosmos. Like Göbekli Tepe, it stands as a testament to an inexplicable leap in ancient human achievement, a silent guardian of secrets from a time when such feats were supposedly impossible. These sites are not just old, they are too advanced for their age, prompting the unsettling question, were these skills developed from scratch, or were they inherited, perhaps rediscovered, from an even more distant past? Beyond these individual marvels, other ancient megalithic sites scattered across the planet amplify the mystery. From the astronomical alignments of Stonehenge in England to the monumental stone heads of Easter Island, these structures speak a common language of scale, precision, and profound knowledge. Many such sites, whether in ancient Egypt, the Mediterranean, or Southeast Asia, incorporate astronomical observations with uncanny accuracy, charting the movements of celestial bodies in ways that hint at a deep, inherited understanding of the heavens. How did societies, often considered primitive by our timelines, acquire such advanced mathematical and engineering skills? The sheer effort required to quarry, move, and precisely place stones weighing tens or hundreds of tons without the aid of modern machinery points to levels of organization, collective purpose, and perhaps even technological ingenuity that current explanations struggle to reconcile. These megaliths are not just architectural achievements, they are complex instruments, calendars, and perhaps even repositories of forgotten knowledge. They compel us to reconsider the timeline of human ingenuity, suggesting that the dawn of sophisticated construction and astronomical understanding may stretch back far beyond the accepted beginning of recorded history. What if these structures were not isolated wonders, but fragments of a larger, interconnected global knowledge system that flourished in a distant age? If the land holds these stone guardians, speaking of forgotten ages, then the sea itself may conceal even more profound secrets. At the end of the last ice age, a dramatic melting of vast ice sheets caused global sea levels to rise by more than 100 meters. Coastlines around the world were irrevocably transformed, vast stretches of habitable land disappearing beneath the waves. If ancient civilizations followed the pattern of our own, building their great cities and settlements along fertile coastlines and river deltas, then an immense amount of evidence from pre-Ice Age humanity now lies hidden, entombed by the ocean. Modern technology, only just beginning to explore the vastness of the ocean floor, is starting to reveal glimpses of these drowned worlds, forcing us to confront the possibility of entire civilizations erased by the relentless march of geological time. One of the most compelling underwater mysteries lies off the coast of Yonaguni Island in Japan. Here, divers have discovered a massive submerged stone structure that bears a striking resemblance to a stepped pyramid or a monumental platform. With sharp angles, flat surfaces, and a series of seemingly carved terraces, it appears too geometrically regular to be a purely natural formation. Some geologists argue it is the result of natural erosion, yet the organized layout, distinct steps, and right angles challenge this explanation. If the Yonaguni monument is indeed man-made, it would imply the existence of complex stoneworking cultures at a time when the land was above sea level, dating back at least 10,000 to 12,000 years ago. This would place it squarely in the pre-Neolithic period, far before any recognized civilization was thought capable of such construction. What kind of society would have built such a colossal structure only for it to be silently swallowed by the rising sea? The Yonaguni monument, whether natural or artificial, forces us to grapple with the fragility of our historical records and the vastness of what the ocean might hide. Similar discoveries have emerged from the murky depths off the coast of India. In the Gulf of Cambay, sonar scans in 2001 revealed what appeared to be the remains of extensive urban settlements, now submerged hundreds of feet beneath the sea. Subsequent investigations and core samples yielded artifacts such as pottery shards, tools, and human bone fragments. Initial estimates, based on radiocarbon dating of wood samples, suggested an astonishing age of around 9,500 years for these ruins. This time frame would push the origins of urban civilization in India back by many millennia, far beyond the accepted timeline of the Indus Valley civilization. While the Gulf of Cambay site remains controversial and requires further detailed investigation, its existence echoes ancient Indian texts that speak of the legendary city of Dwarka, a magnificent coastal city said to have been built by the god Krishna, which eventually sank beneath the waves. Could these submerged ruins be the tangible remnants of such a fabled city, a memory passed down through generations of survivors? These discoveries hint at a thriving, complex culture existing in the region long before the end of the last ice age, a culture that was literally erased from the map by rising waters. And it is not only in distant waters that such traces are found. In the Mediterranean, near the coast of Greece, lies Pavlopetri, a submerged city considered one of the oldest and best preserved examples of its kind. Discovered in 1967, it features streets, buildings, courtyards, and even tombs, all remarkably intact a few meters underwater. While Pavlopetri is only about 5,000 years old, placing it firmly within accepted history, its existence serves as a stark reminder. If a city from just 5,000 years ago can be so completely swallowed by the sea and remain largely forgotten for millennia, what about the countless coastal settlements that would have existed 10,000 or 20,000 years ago, when sea levels were dramatically different? The implications are profound. If we are only now beginning to explore the depths, how many older, more significant cities lie even deeper, beyond easy reach, lost to the vastness of the ocean and the passage of geological time? These drowned cities are not just archaeological sites. They are windows into the true scale of what might have been lost when the Ice Age ended suggesting an immense, unwritten chapter of human history. The challenge in interpreting these anomalous archaeological sites and underwater ruins is immense. Mainstream archaeology, geology, and anthropology operate within established paradigms, building conclusions on evidence that can be measured, tested, and reliably reproduced. When faced with structures like Göbekli Tepe or Pumapunku, whose complexity and age defy current understanding, or submerged ruins whose dating stretches far beyond accepted timelines, the initial response is often one of skepticism. Anomalies are frequently attributed to natural formations, misinterpretations, or later cultural interventions. This scientific caution is vital. It prevents the proliferation of unverified claims and ensures the integrity of our historical understanding. However, this rigorous methodology also creates a barrier to new ideas, making it difficult for evidence that contradicts the prevailing narrative to be seriously considered. The tools we use to understand the past are themselves shaped by our existing knowledge, and so the very methods of interpretation can become a limiting factor. Yet, new technologies are slowly but steadily changing the landscape of archaeological inquiry. Advanced sonar, remote sensing, and deep-sea exploration are allowing us to peer into previously inaccessible realms, revealing features on the ocean floor and beneath the Earth's surface that would have been unimaginable just a few decades ago. These methods provide new ways to gather data, to map landscapes, and to identify potential sites for investigation. The very concept of proof is also evolving. What constitutes undeniable evidence of an advanced civilization from the deep past? If such civilizations existed before the Ice Age, their physical traces would likely be fragmented, deeply buried, or entirely transformed by geological processes. We cannot expect to find intact cities or fully preserved artifacts. Instead, we are looking for hints, for patterns, for out-of-place objects or structures that defy simple explanation. The ongoing debates surrounding sites like Yonaguni or the Gulf of Cambay highlight this interpretive struggle. How do we differentiate between natural processes and deliberate human modification when the evidence has been subjected to millennia of erosion and geological activity? The questions these sites raise are not easily answered, demanding a re-evaluation of our methodologies and an openness to possibilities that lie beyond the comfortable confines of our current historical models. These stone guardians and drowned cities collectively paint a picture that pushes against the boundaries of our accepted past. They suggest that the human story is far richer, far older, and far more complex than the limited narrative we currently embrace. They hint at a time when humanity was already capable of incredible feats, of monumental construction, of astronomical insight, and of organized society long before the rise of the civilizations we recognize as the first. What if these fragments are not anomalies to be explained away, but crucial pieces of a much larger puzzle? What if they are the lingering echoes of civilizations that rose and fell in ages now forgotten, their accomplishments buried by ice, swallowed by the sea, or simply veiled by the relentless march of time? The implications of these discoveries are profound, forcing us to ask, what other stories lie hidden, waiting to be unearthed from the deep past, challenging us to rewrite the very beginning of human civilization? The whispers of stone guardians and the secrets held by drowned cities compel us to re-examine the foundations of our history. Yet these scattered fragments of a potentially deeper past raise a profound question. If civilizations did indeed flourish in ages long forgotten, what then became of them? The answer, etched into the very fabric of our planet, lies in the rhythm of cataclysms, immense, world-altering events that possess the power not merely to destroy, but to utterly erase. The Earth is not a static stage for human history. It is a dynamic, volatile entity prone to sudden and spectacular transformations. Geological records reveal periods of astonishing violence, moments when the planet itself underwent radical change. capable of obliterating nearly all traces of life and culture. One such pivotal event is known as the Younger Dryas, around 12,800 years ago. As the last great ice age was slowly receding, a sudden, dramatic reversal plunged the northern hemisphere back into freezing conditions. The climate, which had been gradually warming, abruptly cooled by as much as 10 to 15 degrees Celsius in a matter of decades, remaining intensely cold for over a millennium. This rapid, global chill halted the melting glaciers, disrupted ocean currents, and fundamentally reshaped environments across continents. The exact trigger for the Younger Dryas remains a subject of intense scientific debate. Some researchers point to a massive comet or asteroid impact, arguing that a celestial body broke apart and showered North America with fragments. The resulting explosions and widespread wildfires would have sent vast amounts of dust and soot into the atmosphere, triggering an impact winter that plunged the world back into an ice-like state. Other theories suggest colossal freshwater outbursts from melting ice sheets, disrupting the Atlantic Ocean's heat conveyor system. Regardless of the precise cause, the effects were catastrophic. If human civilizations existed at this time, their existence would have been abruptly curtailed. Agricultural lands would have frozen, coastlines shifted by retreating ice, then rising seas, and stable environments turned hostile overnight. A sudden global plunge into ice and fire would have led to widespread famine, forced migrations, and the collapse of any established societies, leaving only fragments of a struggling humanity. The physical remnants of such cultures would have been buried by advancing ice, washed away by cataclysmic floods from melting glaciers, or scorched by the fires that may have consumed vast swathes of land. Even further back in time, the Earth offers another chilling testament to its destructive power, the Toba super eruption. Roughly 74,000 years ago, the Toba volcano in present-day Indonesia unleashed a force almost incomprehensible. This was not a typical volcanic eruption. It was a supervolcano ejecting an estimated 2,800 cubic kilometers of material, dwarfing any eruption in recorded human history. The ash cloud alone covered much of Southeast Asia, India, and even parts of Africa, blocking sunlight across the globe for years. The eruption triggered a volcanic winter, causing global temperatures to plummet by several degrees and leading to widespread drought and famine. Genetic evidence suggests that humanity itself may have been pushed to the brink of extinction during this period, passing through a severe population bottleneck where only a few thousand individuals survived worldwide. For any communities, perhaps even nascent civilizations, existing during this cataclysm, their fate would have been sealed. Their cities would have been buried under meters of ash, their fields rendered barren, and their populations decimated by the sudden and relentless cold and darkness. The Toba eruption serves as a stark reminder of how quickly and completely a single natural event can transform the planet, erasing the efforts of millennia in a geological blink. These cataclysms, cosmic impacts, supervolcanic eruptions, and dramatic climate shifts like the Younger Dryas act as nature's ultimate erasers. They reshape continents, bury landscapes, and alter the very chemistry of the atmosphere. Any physical traces of human civilization, wooden structures, early settlements, or even rudimentary infrastructure would be utterly obliterated. Imagine a thriving coastal city built on the shores of a continent before the Younger Dryas. As the climate destabilized and sea levels fluctuated wildly, then rose, that city would first struggle, then succumb, its buildings submerged, its history lost beneath the waves. Or consider an inland culture living in an advanced agricultural society. A volcanic winter or persistent drought could strip away their ability to sustain themselves, leading to social collapse and the eventual decay of all physical evidence of their existence. The Earth, in its profound cycles of destruction and renewal, regularly wipes the slate clean, leaving behind only the scars of catastrophe and an archaeological record that often appears silent for vast stretches of time. Yet, even in the face of such overwhelming erasure, something tenacious can endure. Human memory transformed into myth. Civilizations separated by vast oceans and thousands of years often recount remarkably similar tales of world-ending events. Stories that seem too consistent to be mere coincidence. These narratives, often dismissed as symbolic or allegorical, begin to resonate with the geological record, hinting at a shared, distant memory of profound global upheaval. The most pervasive of these is the global flood myth. Across almost every continent, in cultures entirely unconnected, the story of a great deluge that wiped out humanity and reshaped the world persists. In the Western world, the narrative of Noah and his ark is widely known, a divine punishment and a singular act of preservation that allowed life to begin anew. But this story is far from unique. Long before the biblical account, the Mesopotamian Epic of Gilgamesh tells of Utnapishtim, forewarned by the gods to build a great boat and save his family and all creatures before a devastating flood. In ancient India, the Matsya Purana describes Manu, instructed by a divine fish, to build an ark to survive a cosmic deluge. Greek mythology speaks of Deucalion and Pyrrha, the only survivors of a flood sent by Zeus, who then repopulated the earth. From the Mayan Popol Vuh, which recounts repeated creations and destructions, including one by flood, to the indigenous Australian tales of rising seas and the numerous Polynesian legends of islands swallowed by the ocean, the theme is strikingly consistent. These are not isolated fables, they are deep, resonant echoes of a collective experience, suggesting that humanity, in its distant past, faced a period of widespread inundation. The rapid sea level rise at the end of the last ice age, when massive glaciers melted and submerged vast coastal plains, would have dramatically altered the world, creating the conditions for such universal memories of a watery reset. For ancient coastal populations, watching their homelands vanish beneath the relentless advance of the ocean would have been a world-ending event, burned into the collective consciousness and passed down through generations. Beyond water, fire also emerges as a primordial agent of destruction in global mythologies, often linked to celestial or telluric events. In some Native American traditions, the world has ended not once, but multiple times, by fire, by ice, and by flood. The Norse myth of Ragnarok describes a cataclysmic battle that ends with the world consumed by flames, only for a new, green earth to rise from the ashes. In ancient Persia, Zoroastrian texts speak of a final conflagration that purifies the world. These fire myths, like their watery counterparts, may be cultural memories of real geological events. An asteroid impact akin to the one that may have triggered the Younger Dryas would have ignited massive wildfires across continents, creating a fiery apocalypse. Supervolcanic eruptions like Toba would have filled the skies with incandescent ash and molten rock, turning day into an inferno. Such events would leave an indelible mark on the survivors, shaping their understanding of creation and destruction, encoding these raw experiences into the narratives that define their cultures. Even more profoundly, some ancient cultures articulate a vision of time not as linear progress, but as a series of repeating ages, each ending in destruction and rebirth. Hindu cosmology, for instance, describes vast cycles of time known as yugas, with each era culminating in a pralaya, a period of cosmic dissolution by fire, water, or collapse, followed by a new creation. The Aztecs, similarly, believed they lived in the fifth sun, preceded by 4 earlier ages, each destroyed by a different cataclysm: jaguars, wind, fiery rain, and a great flood. These myths of repeating ages are not just abstract philosophical. concepts. They offer a profound cultural framework for understanding the Earth's own geological rhythms. They speak to a cyclical view of history, where civilizations rise, reach their zenith, and then inevitably fall, only for a new beginning to emerge from the ashes of the old. They suggest that the concept of a reset is not new, but an ancient understanding of humanity's fragile place within the grand, often violent, cycles of the planet. These mythological echoes gain further weight when we consider the pervasive silence in the archaeological record for vast stretches of human history. We look back across the hundreds of thousands of years that anatomically modern humans have existed and find long periods of apparent inactivity followed by sudden, dramatic leaps forward in technology, art, and social organization. If human inventiveness is inherent, why these immense quiet periods? The answer, when viewed through the lens of cataclysms and the relentless march of time, is not an absence of civilization, but a consequence of destruction and decay. The Earth is an active graveyard for organic materials. Wood, textiles, leather, and even bone decay relatively quickly, vanishing within centuries or a few millennia unless preserved under very rare conditions. Even stone structures erode over time, softened by wind and water, eventually crumbling into dust. Metals corrode, artifacts are buried by shifting earth, and entire settlements are swallowed by rising seas or buried beneath layers of ash and sediment. Over tens of thousands of years, the forces of nature are incredibly efficient at erasing physical traces. Mountains rise and fall, rivers change their courses, ice sheets scour landscapes clean, tectonic plates grind across the globe, subducting ancient landmasses and all they contained. Thus, the silence in the archaeological record, those vast gaps where we find little evidence of advanced human activity, may not signify a lack of sophisticated cultures. Instead, it might be the most telling consequence of repeated destruction. Cataclysms would not only wipe out civilizations, but also reset the clock on archaeological preservation. Survivors, reduced to small, struggling groups, would lose knowledge rapidly, returning to basic subsistence. The period of recovery could last for millennia, during which time earlier achievements would fade from physical existence, leaving behind only the faintest cultural memories encoded in myth. What appears to us as a sudden emergence of agriculture, writing, or monumental architecture after a long, quiet period might actually be a re-emergence, a rediscovery or a rebuilding by a new generation on the erased foundations of the past. The silence is not empty. It is a profound testament to the Earth's destructive power, a canvas repeatedly wiped clean, making the fragments that survive, the enigmatic structures, the submerged cities, all the more remarkable. The very gaps in our understanding of the human past, then, may not be evidence of nothingness, but rather the haunting shadow of everything that was lost, swept away by the Earth's cataclysmic rhythms. The past, as we understand it, often presents itself as a tapestry with vast, silent stretches. We have examined how cataclysms could create these silences, erasing not just lives but entire epochs of experience. Yet within these deep, quiet intervals, something remarkable sometimes emerges. Fragments break through the layers of time, not merely silent, but whispering with a knowledge that defies their supposed era. These are the out-of-place artifacts and anomalous maps, remnants that refuse to fit neatly into the linear narrative of history, hinting at an unwritten script of a much older story. When we talk about the great sweep of human advancement, we often imagine a continuous climb, from the simplest tools to the most complex machines. But what if this climb was interrupted? What if knowledge once attained was lost, only to be rediscovered centuries or millennia later? These intriguing objects, often dismissed as anomalies, may be tangible proof of such forgotten heights. Consider the Antikythera mechanism, a name that resonates with profound mystery. Discovered in a shipwreck off the coast of Greece in the early 20th century, it was initially a corroded mass of bronze. But painstakingly, over decades, researchers unveiled its true nature. An intricate assembly of some 30 precisely machined bronze gears housed in a wooden box with dials on the exterior. This device was not a simple tool. It was an astronomical calculator of astonishing complexity. It could predict lunar and solar eclipses, track the movements of planets, and even account for the irregular orbit of the moon. Dating back over 2,000 years to around 150-100 BCE, its existence is a profound puzzle. Nothing remotely comparable in complexity is known from the ancient world until more than 1,000 years later. It stands alone, a singular beacon of technological sophistication that seemingly appeared without precedent and vanished without successor. How could such a device exist? Was it an isolated genius whose work was simply lost? Or was it a surviving fragment of a wider body of knowledge, a more advanced technological baseline that was swept away, leaving this solitary mechanism as its ghost? Its very presence challenges the notion of a steady, unbroken march of technological progress, suggesting instead a peak of understanding that was achieved, then tragically forgotten, only to be reinvented much later. Other objects push the boundaries of time even further. From the deepest geological strata of South Africa come the Klerksdorp spheres, small, metallic objects, some with intricate parallel grooves around their equator. They are found in pyrophyllite deposits, a mineral that formed billions of years ago. Mainstream science largely considers them natural concretions, geological formations created by chemical processes over immense timescales. Yet, their uncanny symmetry, their metallic composition contrasting with the surrounding rock, and those puzzling grooves lead some to wonder if these spheres, or even a fraction of them, were indeed artificial. If they were the products of design, then they would imply a technological presence almost unimaginably ancient. They would speak of civilizations not just predating our accepted history by thousands of years, but by billions. This idea feels like science fiction, but the objects themselves exist, provoking us to question the limits of our understanding of deep time and what, or who might have existed within it. Beyond tangible artifacts, we also find what might be symbolic echoes of forgotten knowledge within ancient art and architecture. Across disparate cultures, there are depictions that, to modern eyes, seem out of place. In ancient Egyptian hieroglyphs at the Temple of Seti, while at Abydos, some carvings bear a striking resemblance to modern helicopters, submarines, and other advanced aircraft. In Mesoamerican art, there are figures interpreted by some as astronauts in elaborate suits, or intricate machines that defy simple explanation within their cultural context. In ancient Indian temples, some sculptures depict what appear to be flying craft or rocket-like vehicles, objects often discussed in texts like the Vimanas. While these interpretations are highly debated, often attributed to pareidolia or simple artistic license, the sheer recurrence of such motifs sparks a deeper inquiry. What if these are not mere coincidences or misinterpretations? What if they are artistic reflections, distorted through generations of retelling of memories of earlier technologies? What if they are a symbolic way of preserving the faint recollection of advanced machinery from a previous cycle, a visual language attempting to convey what physical objects could no longer survive? If so, these depictions are not literal blueprints, but rather a profound testament to a knowledge that once existed, now reduced to a tantalizing mystery in stone and paint. These out-of-place artifacts and enigmatic depictions are like fragments of a mirror, reflecting glimpses of a past that doesn't align with our expectation. They suggest that the ingenuity we pride ourselves on may not be unique to our age, but rather a recurring theme in humanity's deep story, constantly being lost and then painstakingly relearned. And then there are the maps. Maps are not merely art. They are products of sophisticated knowledge, navigation, astronomy, cartography, and global exploration. They require vast amounts of observational data and the means to record and transfer it accurately. Our accepted history tells us that truly accurate global map-making is a relatively recent phenomenon, developing with the age of exploration. Yet, a few ancient maps challenge this timeline in the most profound way, suggesting a level of global knowledge that should have been impossible for their supposed creators. The Piri Reis map, drawn in 1513 by an Ottoman admiral, is perhaps the most famous example. It depicts the coastlines of West Africa, South America, and, most astonishingly, a landmass to the south that bears a remarkable resemblance to the coastline of Antarctica. What makes this depiction so anomalous is not just the inclusion of Antarctica, a continent officially discovered only in 1820, but that its coastline is shown free of ice. Geological evidence confirms that Antarctica has been covered by ice for thousands of years, with its current ice sheet developing over a period that greatly predates any known advanced civilization. Piri Reis himself noted on the map that he compiled it from many older sources, some of which he described as being drawn in the time of Alexander the Great, suggesting an unbroken chain of transmission from deep antiquity. If these older sources were accurate, it implies that someone, long before written history as we know it, possessed the knowledge to map Antarctica when it was still ice-free. This would push the timeline for global exploration and advanced cartography back tens of thousands of years. The Piri Reis map is not alone in its perplexing depiction. The Oronteus Phineus map of 1531 also shows an ice-free Antarctica with mountains and rivers, similar to Piri Reis. Even more striking is the Boache map of 1737, which depicts the subglacial topography of Antarctica, showing mountain ranges and river systems that lie hidden beneath the ice sheet. These geological features were not confirmed by modern science until the 20th century, using advanced radar and seismic technologies. How could an 18th century cartographer drawing from unknown ancient sources possess such detailed knowledge of a landmass hidden beneath miles of ice? These maps collectively present a powerful argument for sophisticated seafaring and global exploration in distant antiquity. They imply that there were people who sailed the world, charted its landmasses, and recorded its geography at a time when we are told humanity was still living in scattered, pre-literate communities, slowly emerging from the Stone Age. The implication of such sophisticated seafaring and global exploration in distant antiquity is immense. It requires a civilization with knowledge of navigation, shipbuilding, astronomy, and metallurgy far beyond what is conventionally attributed to societies existing before the last ice age. It suggests the capacity for sustained voyages across oceans, systematic surveying of vast coastlines, and the intellectual framework to process and transmit such complex geographical data across millennia. These are not random sketches. They are precise, detailed representations of a world that, for all intents and purposes, should have been unknown. These anomalous maps, like the out-of-place artifacts, serve as powerful reminders of the concept of knowledge being lost and then rediscovered across vast spans of time. The knowledge encapsulated in these maps, if genuinely ancient, did not disappear because it was forgotten by a continuous civilization. Instead, it suggests a complete break, a loss on such a scale that only fragments like these maps survive to be copied and recopied, their true origins and meaning lost in the mists of time. They are, in essence, an unwritten script, testifying to cycles of advanced understanding that rose, peaked, and then vanished, leaving only faint traces for later generations to ponder. This cyclical view of knowledge also helps us to re-examine the concept of sudden leaps in human progress. Our traditional timeline describes long periods of slow, gradual development, punctuated by dramatic accelerations in innovation. But what if these leaps are not entirely new inventions, but rather reawakenings? What if they represent the rediscovery of knowledge that once existed, carried forward in fragments, myths, or unconscious cultural memory? Consider the creative explosion around 40,000 years ago, when anatomically modern humans who had existed for hundreds of thousands of years, suddenly began producing sophisticated cave art, intricate sculptures and advanced hunting tools. The sudden flowering of culture and innovation seems abrupt. Some theories propose genetic mutations or the development of complex language. But if earlier cycles of civilization existed and were wiped clean by catastrophe, then this explosion might not be a primal beginning. It could be a powerful reawakening, a phase where survivors, after generations of focusing solely on basic survival, once again reached a point of stability and began to rebuild, re-exploring their inherent creativity and perhaps even drawing on faint, inherited memories of advanced skills. They would be starting anew, but with a potential for rapid advancement that might be explained by a reignition of latent cultural memory. The appearance of agriculture around 10,000 years ago presents a similar puzzle. Across multiple continents, the Middle East, China, the Americas, Africa, diverse populations simultaneously and independently developed farming techniques. Why this near-simultaneous global shift? Environmental stability after the last ice age certainly played a role. But the rapidity and widespread nature of its emergence have led some to wonder if this was less of an independent invention everywhere, and more of a global rediscovery. Perhaps basic knowledge of cultivation, the characteristics of wild grains and the potential for a settled life had been known in earlier cycles. If this knowledge was passed down in fractured oral traditions, simple narratives, or even genetically coded predispositions, then the improved post-Ice Age conditions could have provided the fertile ground for these forgotten seeds of wisdom to once again take root and flourish, leading to a rapid global shift in human subsistence. And then, the most striking leap of all, the sudden rise of cities and complex civilizations in Mesopotamia, Egypt, the Indus Valley, and China. Within a mere few thousand years after agriculture, these complex societies seemingly emerged fully formed, with writing, monumental architecture, astronomy, and intricate legal systems. The archaeological record often shows less of a slow, gradual build-up, and more of a relatively abrupt appearance of sophisticated culture. This pattern perfectly aligns with the concept of reawakenings. If earlier advanced civilizations existed and then collapsed, leaving only small, scattered groups of survivors, those survivors would have reverted to simpler ways of life out of necessity. But when conditions improved and stability returned, the collective human drive to organize, to build, and to innovate would resurface. Drawing on fragments of memory, on inherited skills, and on the very resilience that allowed them to survive, these new societies would rebuild rapidly. What appears to us as a sudden birth of civilization could, in this light, be seen as a powerful resurgence, a re-establishment of complex social structures and knowledge that had been temporarily submerged. These out-of-place artifacts, these maps of forgotten worlds, and these sudden accelerations in human progress are not random anomalies. They are the unwritten script of a deeper history, telling us that our journey is not a simple straight line, but a complex series of ascents and descents. They suggest that what we perceive as the new and advanced in our timeline might, in some profound sense, be an echo of the old and relearned. They are whispers from previous cycles, tangible and tantalizing, daring us to imagine a human story far grander and far more cyclical than we have ever dared to believe. When we consider the fragments and echoes that persist from an unimaginably distant past, a natural question arises. If this evidence is so compelling, so widespread, why does it not form the accepted narrative of human history? The answer lies in the very foundations of scientific inquiry. Mainstream science, particularly in fields like archaeology and geology, is built on rigorous principles of evidence, peer review, and reproducibility. Its strength comes from caution, from demanding undeniable proof before rewriting the fundamental story of our world. This caution is encapsulated in the principle that extraordinary claims require extraordinary proof. To suggest that advanced civilizations existed tens or hundreds of thousands of years before the accepted timeline is indeed an extraordinary claim. It would overturn deeply entrenched theories, redate countless sites, and force a fundamental rethinking of human development. In this framework, scattered anomalies, puzzling maps, or submerged ruins, while intriguing, are often insufficient to break through the established paradigm. They are treated not as definitive evidence of forgotten worlds, but as data points requiring alternative, more conventional explanations. Perhaps a natural geological formation, a misinterpreted artifact, or a legendary tale passed down. Each piece of evidence is weighed against the immense cumulative knowledge of centuries of research, and unless it offers an indisputable, overwhelming case, it remains an outlier. The sheer weight of what is already known, what has been meticulously documented and agreed upon, makes any challenge to the core narrative a truly monumental task. Beyond this intellectual caution, there are practical currents that shape the flow of scientific understanding. Institutional inertia plays a significant role. Academic disciplines are vast, complex ecosystems with established hierarchies, journals, and funding mechanisms. Research programs are often designed to elaborate on existing theories, to fill in details, or to explore new avenues within the accepted framework. Projects that propose to fundamentally challenge that framework often struggle to secure the necessary funding or institutional support. Excavations are costly, requiring immense resources and years of dedicated effort. A proposal to explore deep, submerged coastlines, or to dig far below established cultural layers in search of truly ancient human activity may be deemed too speculative, too risky, or simply outside the approved scope of current research. This creates a kind of self-fulfilling prophecy. If we do not look in the places where evidence of older civilizations might lie because they fall outside our accepted models, then we will never find them. The silence of the deep past, in this sense, is not just a lack of evidence. It is also, in part, a lack of deliberate, sustained searching in unconventional places. The resistance is not purely scientific. It is also cultural. Our understanding of history is deeply intertwined with our identity, our sense of progress, and our place in the world. The narrative of humanity's slow, linear ascent from primitive beginnings to our current technological age is a powerful one. It provides comfort, a sense of direction, and reinforces the idea that we are the pinnacle of development. To suggest that there have been other peaks, other civilizations that rose and fell, erased from memory, can be unsettling. It implies that our achievements are not unique, and that our permanence is not guaranteed. This challenges the very narrative that underpins much of our modern thought. Cultural narratives passed down through education and popular media shape what we are willing to accept as plausible. A story that fits neatly into this established narrative is often embraced, while one that disrupts it may be met with skepticism, not just from scientists, but from the wider public as well. It is easier to maintain the existing story than to grapple with the profound implications of an entirely different past. Yet the history of science itself offers a different lesson. It is a story not just of gradual accumulation, but of dramatic shifts, of long-held truths being overturned by new evidence. Paradigms, those fundamental frameworks of understanding, are not immutable. They are dynamic, capable of being shattered and rebuilt. Consider the theory of continental drift. For decades, the idea that continents moved across the Earth's surface was ridiculed by the scientific establishment. The geologist Alfred Wegener, who first proposed it in the early 20th century, faced widespread skepticism and even scorn. His evidence, including the jigsaw puzzle fit of continents, matching fossil records, and geological similarities across oceans, was considered insufficient. Mainstream scientists argued there was no known mechanism powerful enough to move entire land masses. The idea was seen as an extraordinary claim without the necessary extraordinary proof. It took nearly half a century, and the accumulation of new data, particularly from ocean floor mapping, magnetic anomalies, and seismic studies, for the theory to be resurrected, refined and eventually accepted as plate tectonics. What was once dismissed as impossible is now the bedrock of modern geology. This example is not unique. The existence of meteorites was once doubted by respected scientists who believed stones could not fall from the sky. The idea that life evolved through natural selection was met with fierce resistance. The understanding of the universe, from the heliocentric model to the Big Bang theory, has repeatedly challenged prevailing wisdom and faced initial skepticism. Each time, it was the relentless accumulation of new, undeniable evidence, often facilitated by new technologies or methods of observation, that eventually led to a re-evaluation of the established paradigm. These shifts remind us that science is not a fixed dogma, but an ongoing process of discovery. It is designed to be self-correcting, to eventually yield to compelling evidence, no matter how disruptive that evidence may be to current beliefs. This journey of understanding is not a destination. It is a continuous unfolding. Our human understanding of the world and of ourselves is always evolving. New technologies like advanced sonar mapping, deep-sea exploration vehicles, and sophisticated dating techniques are constantly pushing the boundaries of what we can discover. These tools allow us to investigate places previously inaccessible, to analyze materials with unprecedented precision, and to glean information from contexts once thought unreadable. The deep ocean floor, vast and largely unexplored, may hold secrets that reshape our understanding of ancient coastlines and human activity. Subsurface radar can reveal hidden structures beneath layers of earth, challenging our assumptions about the origins of known sites. As these new capabilities expand, so too does the potential for new discoveries to emerge, discoveries that may finally provide the extraordinary proof required to shift the established paradigms. The very definition of what constitutes evidence or proof can also evolve as our interpretive frameworks become more sophisticated. Perhaps the scattered fragments that currently puzzle us, the strange artifacts, the maps that defy explanation, the myths that echo across cultures, are not individual anomalies but pieces of a much larger mosaic waiting to be assembled. They are whispers from a forgotten past, growing louder as our capacity to listen and interpret grows more refined. The question is not whether new knowledge will emerge, but whether we, as a collective scientific and cultural body, will be open enough to hear it when it does. When we step back from the careful scrutiny of individual findings, when we allow the archaeological fragments, the geological scars, and the echoes of ancient myths to speak in concert, a different kind of story begins to emerge. It is a narrative not confined by established models or limited by our skepticism, but one woven from persistent patterns found across cultures and continents. The anomalous sites that defy conventional dating, hinting at constructions beyond the capabilities attributed to their eras, and the submerged ruins whispering of forgotten coastlines. All these pieces, once seen as isolated puzzles, now connect within a grander design. Each artifact that seemed misplaced in time, each structure that challenged our assumptions, each map fragment suggesting impossible knowledge, contributes to a collective whisper from the past. The Earth itself, in its vast layers of rock, ice and sediment, records a history not of serene stasis, but of profound transformations, climates swinging violently from warmth to glacial cold, cosmic impacts from the sky, and volcanic eruptions that darken the sun, leaving indelible marks across continents and within the deepest layers of human memory, encoded in the parables and sacred texts of diverse peoples. Myths repeat these very events, great floods that covered the world, destructive fires that swept the land, and successive ages ending in cataclysm before a new beginning. These are not merely coincidences, nor are they simply the products of isolated imagination. They are the consistent, pervasive threads of a narrative far older, more dynamic, and more cyclical than we have dared to imagine, suggesting a fundamental rhythm underlying the history of life and civilization on this planet. This synthesis of archaeological whispers, geological upheavals, and mythical echoes offers a profound and perhaps unsettling insight. Our commonly accepted history, the linear progression from early river valley cities to our interconnected modern world, may be little more than a surface layer. Beneath it, hidden by the relentless work of time and the immense forces of nature, lies a vast, complex and unwritten foundation. It is as though we have been reading only the most recent chapter of a much longer, multi-volume saga, a book whose earlier pages are torn, faded, or buried deep beneath the Earth's restless surface. The silence that once defined prehistory, those immense spans of time before the first written records, now seems less like an empty void and more like a dense, heavy veil. Behind this veil, countless previous attempts at culture and civilization may have unfolded, each with its own trajectory of growth, innovation, and eventual disappearance. What we conventionally call the beginning of civilization, the dawn of agriculture or the rise of cities, may simply be the most recent reawakening, a fresh start after a monumental loss, a rediscovery of knowledge rather than an initial creation. It prompts us to consider that our entire understanding of human time, its beginnings, its trajectory, and its ultimate destination, might be built upon a profoundly incomplete understanding of what lies beneath. Within this deeper, cyclical story, a stark truth about humanity's place in time becomes clear: the inherent fragility of civilization. We construct our societies on the comforting assumption of permanence, building cities that seem designed to last forever, developing technologies we believe will secure our future indefinitely. We measure our progress in centuries and millennia, often overlooking the far grander timescales of the planet itself. Yet, the cumulative evidence reminds us that Earth is not a stable stage upon which our drama calmly unfolds, but a dynamic, often volatile environment capable of abrupt and overwhelming change. The deep rhythms of ice ages and interglacial warmth, the sudden violent shifts of tectonic movements, the unpredictable forces from beyond our atmosphere, these are not distant threats to be pondered academically, but active, relentless participants in the planet's ongoing story. Any advanced society, no matter its ingenuity or its perceived strength, would find itself profoundly vulnerable to these immense, indifferent processes. A single comet, a protracted volcanic winter that shrouds the globe in darkness, or a dramatic shift in sea levels that devours vast coastlines, could, and indeed has, swept away entire worlds, leaving little more than faint whispers in the archaeological record, or confused symbolic memories in cultural myths. Our interconnected global systems, for all their impressive complexity and efficiency, are also points of extreme vulnerability, a delicate web that, if strained beyond its breaking point, could unravel with astonishing speed, plunging an advanced civilization back into an age of struggle and silence. Yet, to acknowledge this profound fragility is not to surrender to despair, but to embrace a more complete, more nuanced understanding of our past and our potential future. Within this grand, repeating pattern of destruction and renewal, there is also a profound testament to remarkable resilience. Life on Earth, in all its myriad forms, has endured countless cataclysms, always finding a way to return, to adapt, to diversify, to rebuild itself. And humanity, throughout all these suggested cycles, has proven itself a species of extraordinary tenacity and adaptability. After each great erasure, after each devastating shift in the planet's conditions, small groups of survivors, carrying fragmented knowledge and deeply ingrained instincts for survival, have persisted. They have relearned basic skills, rediscovered lost wisdom, and slowly, painstakingly, begun the long, arduous climb back towards complexity and organization. The sudden bursts of innovation we observe in the archaeological record, the abrupt appearance of agriculture, the rapid flourishing of monumental construction, the sudden proliferation of sophisticated art, may not be spontaneous creations from nothing, but rather the visible signs of a species remembering, rebuilding, and re-establishing itself. We are not just products of a single linear progression. We are inheritors of an enduring spirit forged in the crucible of repeated loss and recovery, a testament to the persistent human drive to understand, to create, and to connect. This deep past suggests that survival, against all odds, is a core part of our story, a powerful echo through the ages. This expanded view of our past invites us to a profound wonder, challenging us to imagine the true scope of human time and achievement beyond our current limited understanding. It asks us to look at the gaps in our historical narrative not as empty spaces of non-existence, but as fertile ground for an imagination unburdened by conventional boundaries. What if the unparalleled ingenuity expressed in the Antikythera mechanism was not a solitary, inexplicable anomaly, but a surviving echo of a much broader technological understanding that once flourished and was subsequently lost? What if the impossible precision of the ancient stonework, from the megalithic structures of Göbekli Tepe to the intricate joinery of Puma Punku, points not to simple stone tools and immense brute force, but to a forgotten science, an advanced mastery of materials and engineering we have yet to fully comprehend? What if the cryptic Piri Reis map, with its stunningly accurate depiction of an ice-free Antarctica, is a faint geographical memory passed down from seafaring civilizations that explored the globe long before our conventional history allows for such things? To wonder about these possibilities is to stretch the limits of our historical imagination, to allow the gaps in our narrative to become spaces not of ignorance, but of immense potential. It suggests that across the vastness of deep time, human ingenuity, curiosity, and civilization may have blossomed and faded countless times, leaving behind only the most resilient, often puzzling, fragments for us to uncover and ponder. Our journey is not unique, but part of an epic, recurring drama, a grand narrative written and rewritten across the millennia. In the end, this deeper story of humanity places us within a grand, repeating cosmic narrative, a rhythm of existence that far transcends our brief moment in the sun. We are not merely standing at the perceived end of a single, unbroken line of progress, or at the pinnacle of a singular historical ascent. We are part of an ancient, ongoing cycle built upon the foundations of worlds forgotten, shaped by processes that far predate the emergence of our species. Our presence on this planet is both profoundly temporary and deeply connected to everything that has come before. The monuments we build, the knowledge we accumulate, the intricate stories we tell, these are our unique contributions to the current iteration of this vast, unfolding cycle. And just as we now sift through the scattered clues and enigmatic remnants of those who may have preceded us, so too might future generations, emerging from their own periods of reset and renewal, one day wonder about us. They might find our buried cities, our corroded machines, the faint chemical signatures of our industrial age, and our myths of floods and fires, and in turn, ask the same profound questions we ask today. How many times has this story of rise and fall, of loss and recovery, truly unfolded? How many worlds have been built, flourished, and then dissolved back into the silence of time? And what enduring echoes of our age will survive to whisper their warnings and their wonders to those who follow? The earth remembers, not with words, but in its deep layers, in its resilient life, and in the enduring cyclical spirit of existence. Our history is not a finite ending, but a continuation, a single, vibrant thread woven into an infinite, timeless tapestry. It is a story that compels us to look not just forward, but deeper, reminding us that the greatest wonders of human achievement may not lie in our future, but in our forgotten past.